Hi, welcome back to my channel, Beautiful Minutia. If you're new here, my name is Tiffany, and today I am doing the Why Haven't I Read These Books Yet tag. I was tagged by Sandy from Miss Reads a Lot, but this tag was originally created by Greg from Another Bibliophile Reads, and basically this whole tag is about books that have been sitting around on our shelves or maybe in a mental TBR for a long time, but for some reason we haven't read them yet. And so it's kind of talking about what those books are and why. There are 5 categories of these books, and so I'm just going to go through those one by one and share a book that I don't know why I haven't read these yet. So the first prompt is a classic book. One of my favorite subgenres of classic literature is Victorian literature, and I have loved Victorian literature since I was a little girl and my dad started reading Victorian literature aloud to me. And so there is one author that I have mostly stayed away from in the Victorian genre, and I've only read one book by this author. And I didn't love it because my expectations were not what they should have been, and so that has caused me to not read as much by this author, but I really want to give them another chance. And so I'm going to say Wives and Daughters by Elizabeth Gaskell. I have read North and South, and I didn't enjoy it because everyone told me it was Pride and Prejudice, but better, is what a lot of people said to me. And while there are similarities between Pride and Prejudice and North and South, they are not the same. The humor's not there. The character development is very different. The writing style is very different. What the authors were trying to accomplish were very different. And so I feel like that was a really unfair comparison, and I went into it with a totally wrong mindset, and as a result, didn't enjoy it as much. Wives and Daughters is one of Elizabeth Gaskell's probably most iconic works. Probably Wives and Daughters and North and South are the two most well-known and well-loved of her books. And so I own Wives and Daughters. I got it earlier this year because I am going to give it another try, but I just haven't been able to do that yet. I know this is one of Kate Howe's favorite books ever, if not her very favorite, and she loves Elizabeth Gaskell. And Kate Howe and I like a lot of the same books, so I really want to give Gaskell another try, and this is probably the next one of hers that I will read. Okay, prompt number 2 is a fiction book, and so I'm assuming this can just be any fictional book, so that's what I did. I'm gonna say The Fountains of Silence by Ruta Sepetys. I haven't owned this book for a super long time, but it's been on my radar for a couple of years. I have read Between Shades of Grey and Salt to the Sea by Ruta Sepetys. Really loved Between Shades of Grey, enjoyed Salt to the Sea, and also enjoyed I Must Betray You, which I read earlier this year. But that one is a newer release. This one has been out for a while and has been on my Goodreads TBR for, oh my goodness, at least 2 years, but I just hadn't gotten around to reading it. I've heard nothing but wonderful things about this book. It's a historical fiction. It's also YA, but Ruta Sepetys' YA is palatable YA for me. And it takes place, I think, in Spain in 1957 during a dictatorship that's going on. And I love books that have kind of like dictatorships or communist regimes and the government and those kind of things. I find those periods of history really fascinating and really interesting. So I'm pretty sure I'm gonna love this book. So I don't know why it's taken me years to pick it up, and I don't have any plans to read it this year. Maybe I'll read it next year, but I have no plans in the immediate future to read it, and I don't know why. I don't have any really good reason. Like, I feel like with Wives and Daughters, I have a reason. It's not the best reason, but I do have a reason. And Wives and Daughters, I'm not picking up this year either. I don't have any specific plans to pick it up, but maybe I'll put both of these on a TBR for next year because talking about them makes me want to read them. The next category is a nonfiction book, and this is a book, again, that's been on my radar for probably like 5 years. And now I own it, and I have owned it for a year because my friend Dia bought this for me for my birthday last year. And that's God's Smuggler, and it's about brother Andrew, who smuggled Bibles into countries where it was illegal for people to have them. And so I've heard wonderful things about this from so many other homeschool moms, so many people in general, and I have wanted to read it for forever. I had even checked it out from the library and then just didn't get it to it when I checked it out from the library like a couple of years ago, and it had been on my Amazon wish list for probably years, and I have now owned it for a year, and it is even on my nonfiction TBR for this year, and it is now August and I still haven't picked it up. Why haven't I read this yet? I don't know. I think we're supposed to be talking about why we haven't read these books, and for most of these books I don't have a good reason. Okay, the next category is a genre book, so I'm guessing that I can just pick a genre. That's pretty much what I did. So I went with fantasy, and I don't read a ton of fantasy, but there's some fantasy that just feels like iconic and I should have read it. One of those books that I've been avoiding is The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson, but I am currently reading that one, so I can't say that one. So I chose The Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. I have owned this for about a year. It's not like I have had it for forever, but it's been on my radar for a really long time, for longer than Brandon Sanderson has been. Robin Hobb is pretty popular, pretty well known, and her Farseer trilogy is really well known and touted by a lot of people as one of their favorite fantasy series of all time. This is also on my 5-star predictions for this year, so I'm supposed to be getting to it at some point this year, but I'm not really sure when yet. So this is another one that hopefully I'll get to at some point in the near-ish future, but months fill up really fast and I haven't been motivated to pick this one up, but it's one that I really do want to read, and I feel like it's weird that I haven't read it yet. And the last question is the book owned for the longest time but hasn't been read yet. And one of those books is A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens, which is really weird that I haven't read that because I'm a huge Dickens fan and I've read a lot of his works, but for some reason I haven't read that one, even though it is like probably one of his most iconic and well-known books and has like one of the most famous opening lines. But I'm planning to read that in Victober. So I chose a different book, and that's Uncle Tom's Cabin by Harriet Beecher Stowe. I have had this book since I think my mom gave it to me when my husband and I got married, not as a wedding gift, but shortly after we got married, or when we got married, when I moved out of the house. I feel like she gave it to me around that time, but we owned it before then, like when I was in high school. I don't know if I was supposed to read it in high school, but I didn't, and I haven't read it, and I don't know much about it. I just know that it depicts slavery in the South in a pretty negative light. I'm pretty sure Harriet Beecher Stowe was an abolitionist. I have never picked it up, and again, I don't know why I haven't read this. I've heard mostly good things about it. I know that Chantel from Chantel Reads All Day tried reading it. I don't know if she ever finished it. I think either earlier this year or last year, I think she was trying to read it and was just having a really hard time getting through it and said it was kind of like dense and dry in places, which normally isn't all that off-putting to me for classics. So I don't know why I have never been inspired to pick this up. But I have had it in my house for probably over 15 years. I don't know exactly how long. My husband and I have been married for 14 and a half years, and I guess we had it in our house when I was a high schooler, so I don't really know how long I have had this in my possession, but a really, really long time to have not even ever tried to start it. I've never even opened it at all, so kind of strange. Well, there are 5 books that I don't know why I haven't read these books yet, but I really should read them soon. I'm going to go ahead and tag a couple of people. I'm going to tag Kate Howe, who loves Wives and Daughters, and I would be really curious to see especially what is a classic book that she feels like she should read or has wanted to read for a long time but hasn't. I'm also going to tag Holly from Lovely Day with Holly because she recently did the telephone book game tag, and she had all kinds of like unread books behind her. So I feel like she has like a massive TBR, so her answers would be really fun for this. And lastly, I'm going to tag Berna from Berna's Bookish Adventures because I would love to see what her answers are for this as well. And if you think that this tag sounds like a lot of fun and you would like to do it and you haven't, consider yourself tagged as well. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please hit like and also subscribe so you can continue to see more bookish content from me. And I will see you again next time.